Hey guys, it's Mina. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you to tune into The Last Dance, which concludes this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. You can listen to the wrap-up podcast hosted by Jalen and Jacoby immediately afterwards. It's brought to you by State Farm. When you want a real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Coverage is also brought to you by AT&T. You can find Jalen and Jacoby wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the Mina Kime Show featuring Lenny, the only NFL podcast where one of the hosts thinks The Last Dance is what happens when you get on your hind legs and beg for supper. I've had some strangers on the show last week. You know, we had Corey Krawick from the Ravens. We had Bobby Wagner from the Seahawks. Today, we've got an old friend, Bill Barnwell from the ESPNs. Welcome back to the show, Bill. It's been a minute.
Bill Barnwell, not a NFL Hall of Famer, checking in.
It's a tough one. Corey, too, was like, really, Bobby after me? You're having Bobby Wagner after me? So it's tough for anyone to stack up against Bobby.
Yeah, not great. But you know what? I'll look past it because I'm delighted to be back on the Mina Kime Show featuring Lenny.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, there's a few things I've been wanting to talk to you in particular about. Two big stories. One, the ongoing debate about Dak Prescott, his contract, and I think more broadly, whether or not you can pay a quarterback a X percentage of the salary cap and still compete in the NFL. I also want to talk to you about whatever the Patriots are doing or not doing at the quarterback position. But first, we have to get to the big story, which is the Seahawks' aborted attempt to trade, I think, like a 6th and a 7th for Myles Garrett.
Oh, yeah.
The source, was it Everybody Loves Nudes?
Yes.
Was the Reddit account? Just an incredible NFL story. And I was offline for like 2 hours, which is, you can miss an entire news cycle started by a Reddit user if you're off for 2 hours.
I mean, this guy was, first off, so many things.
Legend.
Come on, go up. Did you see his post on Reddit, like explaining how he had leveraged his first tweet about, I guess, Justin getting cut to like then get this trade rumor out there while at the same time maintaining his Reddit handle of Everyone Loves Nudes. Like, I appreciate that he wanted to stay true to himself and his philosophy about nude, but he also wanted to shoot off this trade rumor. And then, now that he'd established this tiny bit of credibility for himself, he's like, well, what do I do here? What would make sense? What would get me the most attention? And he's like, a really terrible Myles Garrett trade rumor. It was KJ Wright, a 2, a 6, and a 7 for Myles Garrett.
Why did he make it more realistic? I feel like if he had made it more realistic, it might have even, ascended beyond local sports radio.
Yeah, you had one shot at this rumor. Like, source it, put it in Madden, see if you can make a viable trade rumor. At least have it make a tiny bit of sense.
If you could start any NFL trade rumor and just sit back like, Elmo in front of fire and watch NFL Twitter burn to the ground, what would you start?
Easy. Odell back to the Giants. Easy.
Yes, 100%. Perfect. Yes. That's plausible. See, I was going to say Rodgers to the Patriots, but that's not plausible enough. Whereas Odell, anything involving Odell, I think you can get some legs.
Mm-hmm. Odell back to the Giants. Dave Gettleman talked to the computer guys, realized his mistake. I would love it. It would be so good.
Great drafter, Dave Gettleman. All right, we're not going to talk about that anymore. Although, the Seahawks are still out there. They're being associated. They still need an edge rusher. What they don't need is a quarterback because they've already got one. They pay him a lot of money, and I think most rational Seahawks fans would agree it was worth it. However, according to Stephen Jones, wasn't that a great segue, by the way? You cannot pay your quarterback X% of the cap. And, okay, I don't want to misquote him. I'm going to read it.
Quote.
I'm going to read the quote. This is to Pro Football Talk, I think their podcast. There's all sorts of analytics out there that show if your QB takes up too big of a percentage of your salary cap that it decreases your chances to win. We're just trying to figure out the right fit. No one wants to sign Dak to a long-term deal more than Jerry, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so the assumption is he's referring to the oft-cited statistic about the, how do I put this? The lack of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks with large contracts, right?
As far as I know, yes. I mean,
I can't imagine what else he'd be talking about.
Right. He seems to be basing this on analytics, quote unquote, which I mean, I've heard NFL coaches refer to analytics in a lot of different ways. Some GMs, and of course, Stephen Jones is he qualify as an owner, the son of an owner, the VP? Like, I don't know how to characterize Stephen Jones' role in the Cowboys organization.
Those titles.
But at the end of the day, this is just counting. It's not like like advanced metrics. It's just literally saying, oh, who's won a Super Bowl and who has made a lot of money. Right. And I know you talked about this a little bit on TV. There's a lot of holes in Stephen Jones' argument. Well,
I mean, the first hole is that it's not analytics. It's literally, it's like a small number, right? Yeah. Like we're just talking about, like if you, the off-cited number is referring to the new CBA. So the last 10 years or so. That's such a small sample size. And there's so much randomness in which teams, for even beyond making it to the playoffs, advance to the Super Bowl. What I complained about on TV, I think I've complained about it in every platform at this point. You can just point to first of all, setting aside the Tom Brady thing, okay, the fact that his contracts totally skew the conversation. You can just point to so many moments in recent NFL history where quarterbacks who were paid, within the top 10, let's say, could have, should have almost made it to the Super Bowl. In Matt Ryan's case, won the Super Bowl. I mean, there's the Rodgers, the NFC Championship, there's Drew Brees and the pass interference. Those are the examples I cited, but there's a ton of examples. It's just so random.
Right. And I think there is this sort of idea that this is being used as an argument to not pay certain quarterbacks. And I don't think there's anyone out there. I don't think anyone who's citing this argument as a reasonable, viable argument, like Stephen Jones, I don't think he's sitting there saying, oh, we shouldn't pay Patrick Mahomes. We shouldn't pay Aaron Rodgers in his prime. We shouldn't pay Russell Wilson. Those guys all deserve their money. But the implication is that there is a tier of quarterback where if you pay that guy a lot of money, you can't win a Super Bowl with that guy. And I just don't think that's really borne out by reality. I mean, we saw guys who were that good or at a level below Dak, in my opinion. Your Nick Foles, your Joe Flacco's, your Eli Mannings, to pick a guy, who won Super Bowls before or at least Eli won Super Bowls before this period. Guys who were getting paid good amounts of money winning Super Bowls before this. We saw guys like you mentioned who came very close to winning Super Bowls where, Matt Ryan was awesome throughout that entire postseason. Yes. Won league MVP, was incredible in that game itself. Was, I don't want to get into the second half of that game again or the fourth quarter of that game again. It had nothing to do with Matt Ryan in that game. I just does one guy, does Matt Ryan winning ruin this argument? I just don't see the strength of the idea.
The Flacco example, I think, is a good one, right? Because here's the thing. He caught lightning in a bottle or whatever. He was awesome.
Right.
That postseason stretch. If Joe Flacco had continued to be that guy, they probably would have made it back to a Super Bowl. Yes. If he had continued to play at that level. I quote tweeted this thread from, PFF Moo. I don't know what your real name is, so I'm just calling him PFF
Moo. Sorry. You have to call him Moo. That's what his name is.
Sir Moo, actually looked at the performance of other position groups on teams and examined whether or not they correlate to how much you pay your quarterback, and he found that they did not, right? The success of a team depends on just, is that quarterback good?
Right.
If the Ravens struggled from that point on because Joe Flacco was bad.
Yes.
Right? So the lesson is that you do not pay a bad quarterback a lot of money. So if you believe Dak Prescott is a bad quarterback or an average quarterback, that is a different argument altogether, and one that I'm happy to engage in. I don't agree with it. I think you can argue that he is not great, that he's just good, that he was great last year, but if you look at, his career so far, there's been ups and downs. Reasonable. We can have that discussion. I just object to this notion that once you're quarterback salary hits X% of the cap, you're screwed, right? Because really, Bill, we're talking about a difference of like between, forget the rookie contracts, between your average veteran and the top of the market, you're talking about like $10 million.
Right.
If you're a good GM, you should be able to find that value elsewhere.
Right. And to your point, like, take Russell Wilson. Take Russell Wilson's career where he won one Super Bowl on a rookie contract, almost won a second Super Bowl. We don't have to get into it, but two Super Bowl trips on his rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken. Gets paid. They have not made it back to the Super Bowl since, but having watched them pretty closely, is that because they haven't had the money to pay other players?
It's because they've had bad drafts and injuries. Bad drafts and injuries.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I agree. Like, they've traded some draft picks away for players who have not necessarily panned out. They have handed out some bad contracts here and there, but they've mostly still been pretty good. They just haven't had the draft picks that, where they had, what was it I tweeted out? They had 4 Hall of Famers on rookie deals, with
crazy.
with Sherman Wilson, Wagner, and Earl Thomas. And, they didn't have to let Earl Thomas go. They chose to. They didn't have to let Richard Sherman go. Maybe if he hadn't gotten injured, they might have kept him. But in the long run, they still could have afforded to keep those guys.
Totally. And they lost Averill and Chancellor prematurely, right? Yeah. They've had bad luck in the drafts with McDowell, et cetera. Like, $10 million. If you find an elite corner or pass rusher in the draft, there you go. There's your $10 million, right? Like, this is now, obviously it's better to have a Pat Mahomes or a Russell Wilson on a rookie deal. Of course. But here's my question to you. What are the chances that Dallas is going to find that guy?
That's the thing. That's the downside. And that's the sort of flip side of the Stephen Jones argument, right? Yes. Where it's, it's the problem of, you look at what the Cowboys did with Jerry Jones as their personnel executive over the last 20 years or so. It was basically Troy Aikman under Jimmy Johnson, a lot of junk, like, your Quincy Carters and your Chad Hutchinsons and those guys. It was Drew Bledsoe for a year. Then Tony Romo, who they found as an undrafted free agent, which, hey, great, happy you found him. But, a guy who they did not even think was worth drafting, which is telling about what they actually thought of his ability when they drafted him. And then Dak. And they drafted Dak famously after they tried to get Paxton Lynch, and that failed. They tried to get Connor Cook, and someone traded up for him, and they settled for Dak. And, I think Dak has turned out to absolutely, I think even the most egregious Dak hater would say he's exceeded expectations as a 4th round pick. But then I wonder if, from the Cowboys' perspective, they're still sitting there saying, hey, even maybe subconsciously in the back of their head, this idea of, he wasn't even the guy we wanted. So, do we really want to commit that much money to a guy who was our backup to a backup in terms of our draft options?
I really think that's a valid point, because draft position in the NFL follows you, right? It just influences the way coaches, organizations look at players. And we see it time and time again in that first round draft picks, especially near the top, are constantly overrated. And they hold on to that for a while. Whereas like guys who are drafted later, even if they play at a higher level, they often suffer for it down the road. It's just one of those weird things in the NFL. And the way the Cowboys have treated Dak contractually suggests that that is happening. Now, I think you and I agree. Look, their track record of drafting and the fact that they're going to be a good team next year. Even if Andy Dalton was the starter, they're probably an 8 or 9 win team, I think, personally. I think the ceiling is higher with Dak. So they're not going to be they're not in the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields game, unless they'd have to trade a lot of picks and such. My question to you, Bill, is, okay, so throw out the rookies, and then, maybe there's a dice roll on like a mid-round guy. Would you rather have, because this is, if we're really going to talk about the Dak Prescott thing and whether or not they should pay him, your question is, okay, well, what would they do instead? Well, the other alternative is to pay a guy, a veteran free agent like a Teddy Bridgewater, or trade for a Nick Foles, who get in that, $20 million range. So my question to you is, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, and this is obviously not possible, but would you rather have Teddy Bridgewater at about $20 million a year, or Dak Prescott at close to 40?
I'd rather have Dak, and I like Teddy a lot, but I think Dak has a much higher ceiling than people are giving him credit for. I mean, this is a guy who was the starting quarterback on an offense that was second in DVOA last year. And I think there are going to be people who say, hey, like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not, DVOA doesn't matter in terms of winning. It does. Like, at the end of the day, like, that's a better predictor of wins and performance than raw data. Now, the question I'm going to ask you, and I feel like this is opening up a can of worms that I'm afraid to open, because sometimes I ask questions and then they become topics for other people to discuss at our company. Not you. Maybe you. What are the chances that you think the 2022 Week 1 starter for the Dallas Cowboys is Aaron Rodgers?
First take.
Yes,
if you're listening, Bill Barnwell just suggested that, God.
Like that's possible, no? Like, it's not out of the question that's an alternative for the Cowboys? Because that's 2 years after.
Right, yeah. So if they were willing to get out of the Dak, so if you franchise Dak for a year, right, and then move on.
Well, that's actually another point I should mention. Sorry.
Right.
So when the Cowboys say, and that's Stephen Jones quote, they say, at the same time, Dak we've tried to pay him and he has to accept what we want to pay him. And the answer to that is no, he doesn't. There's no reason he has to, because Dak Prescott is making $32 million or so this year on the franchise tag.
He is like, Kirk Cousins' mountain is within reach.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Now for him. He can get there, and God, he's going to get paid.
Not only can he get there, but he is going to hit that third year when the cap is going to probably rise pretty dramatically, either that year or the year after, because of the NFL's new TV deals. So all those guys this year, we talked about it on, I think, ESPN Daily, talking about those guys who signed short-term deals thinking, okay, I want to get back to free agency in 2 or 3 years for one last hit, when the salary cap might be $300 million or $275 million, as opposed to, I think it's right around 200 right now. So, like, Dak's going to get 32 this year. If he doesn't sign a long-term deal, he's going to get 36 or so next year. And then his 2022 franchise tag would be $54 million, which is, like, they're not going to do that. That's going to get a ton of money in free agency. So, and then of course, on top of all that, you have guys like Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, who, even if you think they're better than Dak Prescott, and I think both those guys are better than Dak Prescott in a vacuum, those guys are going to raise the bar for what quarterbacks can ask for.
Which, again, by the way, if you're on that whole, you can't pay a quarterback and win a Super Bowl wave, so you're not going to pay Patrick Mahomes $50 million? Like, because, you're, where do you set that bar? Like, where is, because then they'll say, no, you can pay a great quarterback. Well, how many quarterbacks are in that group, right? Because your data set includes Russell Wilson, who got paid, includes Rodgers, and, so anyways.
Right. But I think that's the tough part, is that in terms of Dak, like, when you're saying he has to accept what we want, the price is only going up. The price is never going down.
Cowboys screwed this up by not getting the deal done last year. We all did that, because the only risk to Dak at this point is drastic decline in performance, which, oh, by the way, they just gave him like the sickest set of weapons on offense. He's going to shred. Okay. So that is the risk. And then the other risk is injury, right? Which totally reasonable. It's why guys sign long-term extensions early. Every day that goes by, or every year, that risk declines. Mm-hmm. That risk last year, when he had 2 years left, it seemed like, okay, you probably don't want to. And by the way, he was worse the season before. So, that would have been the time from the Cowboys' perspective when they had the most leverage. It has shrunk dramatically. He just has to get through a year, right? Like to get there. So like, we know why he's doing it. We know he has no incentive to do a bad deal. He has no incentive to hold out. By the way, he just needs to play this year. From the Cowboys' perspective, I just think their options are not what people think. I mean, they're not great. It's either draft a quarterback. We've talked through the challenges there, where they'll be drafting, their history, potentially a free agent, which I haven't looked at who might be available next year, but there's no obvious contenders. Although, going into this year, who would have thought Rivers, Brady, etc. Yes. Right. I guess maybe Cam and Jameis, who the heck knows what's happening with them, right? So,
if you're a Cowboys fan, are you super excited to let Dak Prescott go so you can lock up Jameis Winston?
Jameis Winston, yeah. Or, like you just outrageously suggested, wait 2 years straight for Aaron Rodgers. See, that was Bill Barnwell. Copyright Bill Barnwell for listening, and you're the producer of a talk show. I just think your risk is lower with Dak. By the way, in 2 years, let's say you sign him to $36 million, I don't know, a year. That's going to look cheap in 2 years. Not cheap, but reasonable. We've seen this movie, yes. Right? Like, we've seen how this plays out with quarterback contracts. So you take the short-term pain, and then you're not on the market, and it's a difficult market to be on. So
there's one other thing I want to say about it. If the Cowboys were the Patriots, and they had a reputation as like, oh, we are the team where you have to take a pay cut to play here. And the Patriots have for years, not only past Tom Brady, but also whether it's trading for someone like a Randy Moss or signing some of their guys in free agency, they've basically said, hey, like, we can't keep everybody. We're going to let some people go, but to keep as many guys here as possible, because Tom Brady was taking less money. And that's a whole other conversation, but taking at least a little less money than he could have on the open market. We're enforcing that across the board. If you're Devin McCourty, you can get more money elsewhere, but you have to take a little bit of a pay cut to come back here. With the Cowboys, it has been the exact opposite.
That's the problem. Yes.
Everybody, whether it's Ezekiel Elliott, whether it's Jalen Smith, whether it's Amari Cooper, whether it's Tyron Smith, every homegrown player they've had has signed.
Homegrown in Amari's case.
Sorry, you're right. Homegrown player.
If I'm Dak, I'm extra. Okay, sorry.
Yes, it's also fair. But like every young player they've had who they've signed to a second contract has gotten a market value deal. And in fact, in some cases, more than a market value deal. A lot of the contracts they've handed out, going back to the prior generation of Cowboys players with your Marion Barbers or your Roy Williams, those contracts were overly expensive and didn't work out. So when I look at what the Cowboys are enforcing here, it's sort of like, wait, like, you were okay paying Zeke top level money. You were okay paying all these other guys, top of the market value on long-term contracts. Now you're suddenly like, oh, we got to be frugal. Now we have to keep things cheap with Dak, your starting quarterback of all players. That's the confusing part to me.
So let me ask you this, Bill, because this larger conversation of can you win with a highly paid quarterback? We agree, yes, but we've applied the caveat; it has to be a good quarterback. Yeah. Where is that line? Right? Like, so I think Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Is that line, and we're talking like top of the market quarterback money, is it top 10? Do you think? Right? Because so we're coming up. What's the next draft that's going to get paid? 2018, no, 2017. Deshaun and yes. yeah, those guys. Okay, well, so Deshaun and Pat are obviously elite quarterbacks, and deserve all the money. But that next round, there's going to be a lot of interesting questions. Now, we don't, there's still so many questions with Darnold and Allen and Mayfield and such. You shut your mouth. But, like, where do you draw the line on, okay, maybe this guy isn't like one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's good enough. We're just going to do this to not sort of enter the limbo you and I have been discussing.
I don't know. I think it depends on how you want to build your team, right? Like, if you think you can win a Super Bowl with that quarterback and a lot of draft picks and a few free agents who you're keeping around, like sort of like a Colts, Peyton Manning era team, which, by the way, I know it's previous CBA, but I'm sure Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl when he was one of the highest paid quarterbacks in football. I think you can do that, but then you have to be selective about the choices you make elsewhere. You can't sign everybody, can't be the Rams and sign everyone who you acquire to a big contract and then assume it's all going to work out. And if it's, in that case, you can probably you could probably pay a top 15 guy and still win a Super Bowl with him and hope that your drafting and development is still sound. On the flip side, if you're someone who wants to go out and sign a bunch of free agents, if you don't think you can, draft and develop well, if you're going to trade some of your picks away for veteran players, then I think you have to be more selective because you can't get away with paying a top 15 or top 16 guy because of the money you have to put elsewhere. Maybe you can only be a top 10 guy at that point. But I mean, I think we overestimate how difficult it is to win a Super Bowl, how exclusive of a quarterback you can be to win a Super Bowl. The Broncos had Peyton Manning playing sub-replacement level football and won a Super Bowl with a great defense. The Eagles won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles as their quarterback. Joe Flacco, Eli Manning twice. I mean, it's not as if you have to have a top 10 guy or a top 15 guy to win a Super Bowl. It's just your chances are going to increase, and your chances are going to increase if you're paying him less.
All right. On that note, let's take a quick break, answer some questions, and then we'll talk about the Patriots later.
Question. Lenny, for your thoughts.
I don't know how to say this word. Cthulhu, you know, the mythical creature. Cthulhu for Prez asks, oh boy. So we had the QB value discussion. What do you think this question's about?
I'm afraid it's about dog value.
What do you think the future of the running back position is? Could we go with a team having a rotation of H-backs and slot receivers who step into the backfield? Where do you think this is going?
Robots.
Did you see the robot in Singapore? That the dog robots from Boston Dynamics that are enforcing social distancing?
Oh no.
I want to do a longer podcast on the running back position and like morality. I got into like a long discussion with someone on Twitter because this is something I think about a lot, right? Like, and I have written about it in the past, and you know, because people say, well, like the analytics people, like, you know, they deserve to get paid. It's like, yeah, but you can't force teams to allocate money inefficiently, or can you? And what would that look like? I suggested in the past letting running backs, you know, skip the draft, but it's a longer conversation. Anyways, I mean, we're seeing more and more teams go to committee. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I mean, how many teams? I mean, there's still teams with every down backs, but that has really changed.
I mean, there's what? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but
either.
Like in terms of guys who were, you know, I can't imagine how many 250 carry backs there were 15 years ago, and now last year there were 8.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I think, and I don't know what you think about sort of about the morality of it, but in terms of the football elements of it, I mean, it's good to have a good running back. Like, I don't think every running back is exactly the same. I don't think they offer the same exact value, but what I wonder is, you know, I think at some point we're going to see teams, maybe it's cyclic. Maybe it's not just that one team's going to change their mind, but we're going to see teams just cycle through guys on rookie deals.
Yes.
And I think that's the logical thing to do. I mean, you know, having Christian McCaffrey is great. And maybe it's the same question as the quarterback question of like, having Christian McCaffrey for $4 million is valuable. Having him for $16 million a year might be another question altogether. But I mean, I think the game is changing. The game is much more of a pass friendly game than it was 10, 15 years ago. And that's naturally going to make running backs less valuable. I would like to see running backs get paid more. I'd like to see rookies in general get paid more. And maybe that's where it goes, is that just, you know, maybe it's not this CBA, but the next CBA where rookies are making more money. Cause I do think that even if rookies were making too much, on the CBA 2 CBAs ago when it was like the Sam Bradford era, I think these 2 past CBAs have made rookie players of all stripes, quarterbacks, running backs, every position, have left them undervalued and, easy to exploit.
Right, except for, of course, first-round running backs who get contracts they probably wouldn't get if you got rid of the draft, right? And like,
I don't know. Like, what did Zeke get on his first contract?
A lot. I mean, if you're a running back and you're drafted in the first round, you're instantly one of the highest-paid running backs.
Yeah, you're in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah, the way the market's
so
gone. Although now we're not seeing them. So this year it was the last pick with Edwards-Helaire, but the previous year, was anyone taken in the? That wasn't the penny draft, was it?
That was Saquon.
Oh, Saquon. Okay, so it still happens.
Yes. So Zeke in 2016, Zeke got 4 years and $25 million. I think he would have gotten more than that, but I don't know if he would have got a ton more than that.
Yeah. It's interesting. And then, again, this is for a long conversation, but like if they didn't have tread on their tire, if, you know, they didn't play in college,
right?
You hit the market twice. Anyways, that's a different podcast. F. Minier asks, well, he's a long-suffering Jets fan. And
there's no other kind. Like, they're not like, I guess they're short-suffering Jets fans.
Right. I'm a Jets fan who decided to bandwagon the team recently. His wife is a Cowboys fan. They have a bet of who will be the first of the two to win a Super Bowl.
Oh, boy.
Clearly the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I actually think the Jets could be better this year, though. You don't. He also wants to know, what did the Jets have to do to get rid of Adam Gase and hire Eric Bieniemy? So, you could win-win either way this season. But I don't know. I think I like what they did in the draft. I think Sam Darnold is better equipped now than he was last year. That's going to be a really tricky one, by the way, to go back to our conversation about giving these guys contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not tricky, because based on what they've seen, they're not going to pay him, but he's been so set up to fail.
Can I ask you a Mina Kimes show featuring Lenny exclusive question?
Sure.
During the draft, when you saw Adam Gase with his family, could you stop thinking about the article about how he left his wife in the delivery room? Because I could not stop thinking about it.
Oh my, wait, okay. Oh yes. Okay. To be clear, not leave his wife. Sorry. I was like, what did I miss? No. Yeah. He didn't, it's the same woman. It means he went back to work.
He went back to work, within minutes of the child being born.
I mean, it's not like the kid's gonna see him and remember it.
Probably read the article, no?
Oh, that's funny, right? How old is the kid now? 10,
I think. I saw one child. Not sure if it was that child exclusively, but you know what I mean? It's just this weird, contrast of, family man and also, refused to pull out the umbilical cord. Oh, I thought about it the whole time. It was, I could not think.
I loved all the articles after that were coaches realize they can do work from home and have lives too. And, yeah.
Coach can spend 20 minutes with their children without looking at film.
I'm someone who watched Jarret Stidham preseason last night on my own willingly, so I'm in no room to talk. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. Madden mobile player.
Wait. Do we actually answer his question?
It's the Cowboys, dude.
It's the Cowboys. Getting rid of Gates? I mean, if they go...
Yeah, well, come on.
4-12?
4-12? If they have a losing record, he's gone. You really think he'll survive another losing season?
He was only there for 1 year. But I guess he wasn't their first choice either, because what's his name? Matt Rule was their first choice now.
Yes.
So I guess maybe because he's their second choice, if they go 7-9 again.
The GM after.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Madden mobile player asks if Wes Welker, who I once confused for John Lynch, and was not very nice about it. If he is a Super Bowl curse, he has 0 rings. He lost with Brady, Manning, and now Shanahan. Wait, Welker never won with Brady?
You dropped that Giants pass.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he got there when they were in there in 07.
And then he was with Manning the year the Seahawks won.
Yeah.
And then now, wow.
This guy's onto a first take style story.
I love this guy. Manning mobile player. The facts speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. John Lynch would never.
Former Patriot John Lynch.
I should remind people who don't know, the Super Bowl in Miami, I went up to Wes Welker and asked a question for John Lynch, and he was unimpressed. They look freaking identical, and I don't see height. Eagles 41-33, 41 and 33 asks...
Wait, what was the question?
If the curse is real. I said yes.
Okay,
totally.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, no question. Okay. This next one wants to know, if Roger Goodell asks you to reorganize teams and divisions so you can move any of them around, what would you do? He suggests moving the Cowboys out of the East because they aren't in the East.
Yes. It's so, the Cowboys and the Cardinals were in the East when I was a small child, and I could not figure that out whatsoever. It made no sense to me.
Very clearly, first move is to get the Patriots out of the AFC. Okay, so I would swap them with Washington and put them in the NFC East. Let's let Washington feast on the AFC East for a while. The Patriots have the hardest schedule in football. Wow, what a coincidence. Second, we'll get to that. So I would do that. What else would you do?
I want to keep the AFC South exactly the same because it just belongs together.
They really do. They're like those quarantine houses.
Yes.
They're like the one where it's like
quarantine house nobody picks.
That's a good one. The NFC West is you and I were talking about, by the way. Do you think we were talking about which division is the hardest in football? And we agree it's the NFC West, right?
Yes, I think so.
I think it's the AFC North. I think is quite good this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better. I think that's you figure the Bengals are going to be better. I have faith in the Browns getting better. I think the Bengals or the Ravens are going to be a little worse, but yeah, I could see those two teams. I would swap.
Those will be better.
Yes, I would swap Dolphins and Colts because the Colts used to be in the AFC East. Dolphins are in the AFC East. They are about as far south as you can be in the United States of America. And they're in the East, as not the South. So I feel like they should be in the South now that I think about it.
I feel like we need to create new rivalries, right?
Dolphins Jaguars is a rivalry I want twice a year.
That Florida interstate beef. God, the NFC South is so good now with Breeze and Brady. Mm-hmm. I'll leave that be.
I'm so excited for the first Buccaneers game in September, when there's a 2.5 hour lightning delay before Tom Brady takes the field in the fourth quarter, because that happens every single year for the Bucs. And then
is it in Tampa Bay?
It's got to be in Tampa Bay, right? Who do they?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I mean,
they have a home game in September.
It's definitely going to happen, guys.
Right, Carolina.
God, that boat. Nobody should be on that boat, and not just because of social distancing. Yeah, I go AFC West. I think could be decent
for best division.
Well, after the NFC West, yeah, I'm just kind of everyone's playing for second at this point. Yeah, you mentioned the NFC North. I don't see it.
What don't you see?
I think the Bears are not going to be good.
I mean, last year the Bears were the most depressing team in the league in a lot of ways, and they went 8-8. That was their floor for how bad they were.
They have, God, I've been trying not to use this word as much, and I feel like I should have a penny jar for every time I use it. But the Bears, I feel like, are one of the higher variance options this year because Nick Foles is just a roller coaster. You just never know. I think the Lions could actually surprise.
I do too.
Yeah, Stafford was crushing it last season.
Lions they're not they're going to be not number one on my list of teams likely to improve this year. I don't think they're going to be the Niners, but they could be a playoff team. That wouldn't. The
teams that I was just texting with someone about this, which teams do you think could be better and people aren't thinking about? I mentioned the Lions, the Broncos were one of my teams.
You're not on the Chargers bandwagon?
Well, yeah. The Chargers, what was their score in
5-11
score games? Yeah.
It was a little and a lot was their record in one score, which it is every year.
Chargers is going to be a weird team.
I would assume the Cardinals are probably a team people think are going to be better.
Yes, the Cardinals, Colts, obviously.
How do you feel about? I was talking with our friend Dominique Foxworth. What do you think about Kyler Murray's MVP chances this year?
Where is he on the? I remember I saw the odds and I remember thinking that was the best odds. I liked them the best. I'm a huge Kyler fan.
Could you see him taking that leap and not having the same sort of season?
I don't think the team will be good enough for him to win.
I think that's the tough point, right?
Yeah. I think he has a very strong chance of being most improved or whatever and being in that conversation amongst top 5 quarterbacks potentially. But I don't think the team will be successful enough for him to win MVP. I don't think that defense is improved enough. Okay, last question before we get to the Patriots.
Okay.
Sports Guy 55555 asks, if Brandon Cooks catches that deep pass and the Rams win the Super Bowl, is Todd Gurley still on the team?
Oh, yes.
Alternate histories. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
They keep that entire team together. They're treating last year as a total blip.
Yep.
They keep everyone around, and Jared Goff gets an even bigger contract extension than the one he actually got.
Probably coronavirus never reaches American shores.
No, I'm not. That first take, producers. That's Mina Kimes.
Do you think Tom Brady's still a Patriot?
I think Tom Brady retires. I think he's just like, I can't beat him. I can't. They're too good.
Such a hater. Let's talk about the Patriots. Are they trying to win? I want to preface this conversation by saying, as I alluded to earlier, I watched some Jarret Stidham preseason yesterday.
Well,
to prepare, because I study.
If you ground.
I ground it. I ground that tape.
If you ground the tape, tell me what you saw.
No, I asked you first. This is my podcast. Okay, we can talk about it. Okay. Well, we should preface this by saying the Pats are rolling with Stidham, Bill Belichick.
You have to figure at this point. Like, there's no one else who. Joe Flacco, I guess, could theoretically get the job.
They seem to be allergic to the idea of Cam Newton.
Yes.
Bill Belichick, he said recently, he's like, he was raving about stemming,
I mean, he likes
Jarret Stidham. Draft anyone.
No.
Yeah, he likes Jarret Stidham. So there's that. So then there's the question of, okay, do they like him? Do they want to win? Do they think they can win? Do they think they're competitive? Are they trying to tank? Is this just a experiment to see what they have? All, I think, reasonable questions, although Patriots fans get very angry. Why didn't they go for Dalton, who I think a lot of people linked with the team as being sort of a caretaker? So the facts I'm willing to accept here is that Jarret Stidham is going to be the starter. They like Jarret Stidham. Question is, do they think they can compete and win the division with Jarret Stidham?
Yes. Do I think they will? I would say no. But do I think they can win football games with Jarret Stidham at quarterback? Yes, I do think they can. And I think it's not out of the question they can, even if you're skeptical about Jarret Stidham, no?
Yeah, I mean, this is still a really good defense. The secondary is largely intact, by the way, and this team's built back to front. We've talked about that a lot. Bill Belichick could start you and me at outside linebacker, Bill Barnwell, and we could generate a pass rush.
Yeah, for sure. We have like 27 seconds to get to the quarterback, so we're good.
Actually, and they got Uche. They'll be fine on defense. Okay. Yeah. I think this is so this kind of cuts to what I saw out of Jarret Stidham so I watched the Carolina game. It was week 3. By the way, they paid Brady a long time in that game. I see why he left. And
that was it.
He's like, enough. So what I saw, okay, here are my takeaways from watching him. Not as athletic as I thought he would be. I was told, I guess compared to Brady, he's more mobile. Sure. I'm more mobile. But he did not look particularly fast to me. He got sacked a lot, although that had more to do with he was not great at recognizing pressure. Made a couple of decent throws in the middle of the field up the seams to Jacoby Myers. Also made a few throws that should have been picked. Mostly it was, just off of play action. I don't know. He looked like a mid-round quarterback to me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's going to be awful. And obviously this was against, 2s and 3s by then in the game, for the most part. I don't know. I didn't see anything that led me to believe, yep, woo, wow, right. That's the guy. It wasn't like a disaster, so that was, my takeaway from watching that is it's this Patriots offense, which by the way, it's not like he's being given a lot to work with here. Well, that's right. I think they're going to be a lot like the early 2000s types Patriots offenses.
Mm-hmm. I could see that. Here's a couple questions I have to ask you.
Okay.
Right. No, I have one point and I have one question. I'll ask you the question first. The question is this. Do you think they're going to change their style of offense at all versus what they did with Brady?
Last year.
Yeah.
You're talking, no. I think it's going to look very similar to the offense last year. Wait. Let me dial that back.
I don't know.
Because they drafted those 2 tight ends.
They drafted 2 tight ends. They brought in, what's his name? Jed Finch, who used to be with the Rams and was with Michigan, who I could see them doing more play action.
A lot of play action. 100%.
Getting more, using that, limited mobility that Stidham has. It's more than Brady. Sort of getting him out more on bootlegs and getting him out the pocket more frequently, whereas Brady obviously was operating almost entirely out of the pocket. I can see them sort of trying to use his legs more, not like he's going to be like a runner, but more just sort of similar to maybe like a Garoppolo in terms of just having some mobility.
That's what I was hoping to see. But and look, I'm talking about one game, guys. So, I could totally be wrong. And I'm, like I said, I'm sure I've read and heard.
We don't have a lot of data to work with.
No, there's not a lot to work with. I've heard that he's fairly mobile. Kind of like how I thought the Giants should have used Daniel Jones more last year. That's what I would expect them to do with Stidham. The other near interceptions were concerning.
Well, sure.
That's that, and then sort of the inability to diagnose pressure and coverages, I think, is going to manifest itself a lot.
Certainly, at the beginning of the season, you figure teams are going to throw every sort of exotic pressure they have at him, and he's not going to diagnose all of them. He's going to get hit.
Yeah. He's
going to get taken down. He's a guy who did not throw a ton of interceptions in college, just 13 picks on 848 attempts. And, I know his numbers did go down pretty dramatically in that final season. Here's what I would say, and this is where I disagree with you about the Patriots. I think the core he has around him is pretty good. Like, it's not like, it's not as if he has the Chiefs' offensive weapons or anything, but number one, that offensive line is good. And
yes,
they did lose Dante Scarnecchia, which I'm scared about, but keeping Joe Thuney, even if it was not the best use of their cap space, they have a very stable, solid line in front of Jarret Stidham. Now, of course, guys can get hurt. They don't have a ton of depth there, but their healthy 1-5 line is top 10 to me. And then you get to the receiving core. I think we're underrating it based on what happened at the end of 2019 when you had Julian Edelman playing on a bum leg. He had multiple surgeries at the end of the season. Was it a leg? I think it was a leg, but he was hurt for sure. You had Mohamed Sanu, who had joined the team in midseason, didn't really know the playbook, and suffered a high ankle sprain and was basically a shell of what he could normally do. And I think Mohamed Sanu is still a pretty good number 2 wide receiver. And you had N'Keal Harry, who was a first round pick, who missed half the season, and rookie receivers generally do not do pretty well in this offense to begin with. So it wouldn't shock me if their wide receivers were much better in 2020 than they were in 2019. And then those tight ends, I'm not super thrilled about, 2 rookie tight ends in Devin Asiasi.
I don't know how to say it. I drafted the other one in Dynasty, so I'm hoping Dalton Keene is the real target monster.
Dalton Keene sounds like a Patriots tight end.
I know, right?
He sounds like he is from New Hampshire.
What does he look like?
Yes.
I drafted him. I know nothing about him. It was my last pick.
Yes, but their tight ends were garbage last year. And I don't want to disparage them, but they were bad. Matt Lacoste and Ryan Izzo were maybe one of the league's worst tight end pairings. So even having, 2 above average athletes or 2 athletic players might be an upgrade on those guys. And then they're deep at running back. I don't know what's going to happen with Sony Michel. He might just be bad. That's not out of the question, but they have a bunch of good receiving backs in James White and Brooks Burkhead, and Damian Harris should play a bigger role this year. Like, I'm confident they're going to have an okay running game. They added Dan Vitale to play fullback after James Devlin got hurt. They're not going to have to play a linebacker at fullback this year. But I think they have more around him than it seemed like because they were hit with so many injuries at the end of 2019.
First, Dalton Keene looks exactly like you're thinking.
Thank you. Good.
Glad he's on my team. Second, I'm going to say something that you said to me, I think last time we recorded a podcast together, which is Sanu and Edelman are on the wrong side of 30.
They are.
And that, I think, is a case. I mean, again, obviously being healthy is better than not being healthy, but you're right. They're probably going to be better than last year just because they were so diminished, but it's still a tough group, I think.
Sure.
Especially, yeah. So I don't know. Well, but I guess that brings me to the next discussion, right? Which is, not are the Patriots tanking, but do you think it's feasible that Bill Belichick is open to the possibility of not winning?
No, he's an old man. He does not want to sit around for a year coaching. Have you seen his dog? You don't think he'd rather hang out with his dog and his wife? Right. No, I don't think he's in a position where he wants to tank. I don't think that is something he is super open to doing. Now, if it works out that way, I don't think he's going to be heartbroken, but I don't think this is the same guy who told his defense in the Super Bowl to let Ahmad Bradshaw score. So he's willing to, to give up. That's not out of the question for him. But my inclination is that as a elderly man who does not maybe have a ton of coaching years left, who had the league's best defense by every measure last year.
Yeah.
I kind of think he's in the position of, yeah, we can still win. I think if they were going to tank, they would have let McCourty go. They would have let some other guys go. They would have tried to save their money, roll some over for next year, and try to win with whatever quarterback they're going to get in 2021. Here's the flip side, though. And this is the stat I looked up before I came on the show today. Mina.
Research.
You know what? You watch the tape. I get there in Excel and I grind the numbers. You know that.
All right. Give it to me.
Okay. I came up with a list of every quarterback who was drafted outside of the top 100, who did not start a game as a rookie, and then was their team's week 1 starter in his second season out of college.
Who's on the list?
Trevor Siemian. That is the entire list in the history of the National Football League.
Seventh round pick, right? Seventh round
pick. And I'm not sure why they started Trevor Siemian. I don't remember what the Broncos were doing that offseason.
Those heady days.
2016.
Remember his parents? They'd always show his parents in the stands. His mom had like a really blunt haircut. I remember that.
I don't remember Trevor Siemian's mom's haircut.
I remember it so vividly.
But you get what I'm saying. Like just say once, twice in the Jets, I think, no? Or was he with the Jets?
Yes, you're right. Yes. Now I remember when it got down to him, everyone was like, oh. Yes, it is very unusual. It is very rare. Everyone's like, oh, they did it with Brady.
But Brady
is so rare to do. If the Patriots, if Jarret Stidham's actually good, that will be unprecedented.
Yeah, Brady
in the history of the NFL. Not to go from a one Brady to a him. Sorry.
Yes, that's like a revisionist history thing with Brady, where they draft him in the 6th round. He plays like 3 snaps. He's the 3rd string quarterback. That offseason, they signed Drew Bledsoe to a 10-year extension. They were not expecting Tom Brady to be Tom Brady in training camp that year. He was better in training camp for sure, but there's this thing now where people say, oh, he was about to, take over for Bledsoe. That is an absolute. There was no evidence at the time that was going to happen. Bledsoe got hurt. He had a sheared blood vessel. Brady comes in. History's history. But in terms of actually planning, it's like, okay, we're going to have this guy who was untested, who was a late round pick, start for us 2 years out of school, no starting experience. Didn't happen.
So let me ask you this about the tanking stuff. I agree that it seems pretty obvious the Patriots are confident in Jarret Stidham. We've heard from Patriots supporters he's awesome in camp. He looks better than most rookies. They really like him. Obviously, they've drafted rookie quarterbacks before, so there's points of comparison there. Why not bring in competition, though? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get, okay, he's their guy, but why do you not have, like, why is the only other option, if they really want to win, why is the only other option on their roster Brian Hoyer?
What if Bill Belichick believes that you can't win a Super Bowl with a guy making more than $5 million?
Oh, yes.
End of show.
End of show. I know teams are weird about young quarterbacks and like who they will and won't bring in. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's as likely as an explanation of anything in terms of like managing their psyches and whatnot. I
mean, if you were the quarterbacks who were out there, if you were Andy Dalton, I guess Andy Dalton's the best option. Would you have gone to the Patriots if that was an opportunity? They didn't even call them, by all accounts. Yeah. They have not been linked with a single quarterback, Bill. Yeah. The only explanation to me is that they either have a really strong opinion of Brian Hoyer, which I don't think is the case because they cut him last year, or they like Jarret Stidham, but they don't want to test him. They don't want to give him actual competition. They want to reinforce his confidence. They don't want to have a situation where if he struggles in September, that they are going to, have a guy on the bench who fans are going to be clamoring for. And I think there's some logic in that. I do think we've seen teams who, go back and forth and struggle. I think Alex Smith's early career is a good example where he got benched over and over again and, win the job and then have it for a month and get benched. And there was that famous thing on Monday Night Football where the entire crowd in San Francisco chanted, "We want Carr," at Alex Smith, which is very sad. But like, I think you have to be judicious about how you handle their psyche, because you don't know how they're going to react when they struggle. And so I think it does make sense to me from what Belichick did that he, from a perspective of developing Jarret Stidham as a long-term quarterback, the logical thing is to not bring in a quarterback who's going to test him. In terms of like winning in 2020, it doesn't make sense to bring in a quarterback who can test Jarret Stidham. Oh, sorry. It does. You should. Yeah. No, I mean, what you're saying is the way all the NFL acts, right? Like why is Cam Newton on a roster? What you just described. Like if you go team by team and like teams that should consider him, well, there's many reasons, but a team like, I don't know, like a Denver or a Washington, like why bring in a Kyle Allen, or whatever. It's because you don't want to bring in the guy where when your young quarterback struggles, fans are screaming, we want Cam, or, we want Dalton. God, I'd love to hear we want Dalton. And all of that reinforces that they really like Jarret Stidham. It just, like, that's the only explanation. So here's my question, I guess. If Jarret Stidham has a mediocre year, if he's like Mark Sanchez, the first Mark Sanchez year with the Jets, like, what do the Patriots do?
This is why I think it's a tricky situation, because you and I agree, like, they're too good to tank. Their defense is too good. They're probably going to win some ugly games. But the outcome you're describing is very realistic, right? Like, they're like, fine. He's not awesome. They win some games ugly. The defense is still good. You're picking maybe like 20 or 15. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's a totally realistic outcome, Bill. And I don't know. I mean, perhaps they think there'll be free agent quarterbacks next year, and they didn't like, it's no surprise they didn't like Jameis, right? But like they didn't like the options this year. I don't know. Or maybe they're waiting for Aaron Rodgers.
Oh.
All right, let's wrap as always with 5 questions for you.
And now it's time for Dinks and Dunks. I'm getting paid for this, right?
First question. Pay attention to how I'm wording this.
Uh-oh.
Who has a better roster, the Bucs or the Saints?
Is this like a trick question where like the Bucs are like something totally different?
Uh-huh. A lot of people think I've been hearing both answers.
The Saints have a better roster.
Okay. So there's no universe in which you think the Bucs are a better team. Who do you think has a better defense?
1 through 53? I think they're about equal on defense. But I think the Saints have more upside. Like, I think when the Saints are more likely to get hot and have like a top 3 defense, whereas the Bucs, I guess they did it last year. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just underestimating the Bucs defense.
Well, the Bucs defense, they've got all those young guys in the secondary, right? So that they could get better. I think there's that option.
They did get that like 99.9th percentile season from Shaq Barrett last year, though.
That's true. But I think Devin White could take another step forward. They brought back Sue.
They got JPP.
They drafted Antoine Winfield Jr. I really like that pick for the secondary.
I like him. It makes me very sad that
I know, it's so depressing. It's very upsetting.
I still like that he's a good player. Like, I think they're a lot closer on defense than people give them credit for. And then I think on offense, I think the Saints are better.
I agree. And I keep picking the Saints largely because of the nature of the season, right? I think the Saints are one of the teams that are like best equipped for all of the craziness that's happening this summer.
Can I give you a Saints stat though?
Is it a negative one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear it.
Which team in NFL history had the fewest turnovers in a 16-game season?
Is it the Niners?
It's 2019 New Orleans Saints.
Really?
They had eight giveaways all year.
Oh, sorry. I think you meant on defense. They picked up.
Offense.
Sorry, I misheard that. I was thinking the 2018 Niners, right? Didn't they have like 1 interception?
They had 2 picks. Two picks all year. Yeah, the Saints had eight giveaways.
Wow. Really? Okay. Question 2. I've been asking everyone this. What is a quarantine TV recommendation you have?
You asked me this the last time I was on the Mina and Bill podcast featuring
God.
him. And I said,
were you on during the quarantine?
Yeah, I said I think I think he's great. Yeah, it's been going on for a while. I don't know if you noticed.
God.
What's the show I watched? The show where you couldn't sleep with the other people on the show, the reality show.
Too Hot to Handle.
I watched Too Hot to Handle. Did you watch Too Hot to Handle?
No, I haven't watched Too Hot to Handle. I want you to Listen to Your Heart.
Oh, I have not watched Listen to Your Heart.
So bad.
Did you watch? Have you watched Love Island at all?
No.
Okay. Well, so there's like the narrator on Too Hot to Handle is making fun of the contestants. And I don't know if I like that. I feel like...
Yeah, I don't like that.
I want to be in the moment. I want to empathize with these incredibly unrelatable, awful people.
I've seen the trailer for Too Hot to Handle, and I'm just all for anything that reminds people that just because you have a British accent doesn't mean you're smart.
It does mean you're hot, though. That's kind of the premise of the show.
Question 3. If you could pick one NFL team to change their name to the Murder Hornets, who would you pick?
Ooh. Thanks. See, there's not like a really easy one here, because like in the NBA, for example, I'd pick Utah because Utah Jazz is absurd. So the Utah Murder Hornets they're more likely to find a murder hornet in Utah than jazz music.
So it's like you find a bad mascot.
Bad mascot. I like the alliteration of Miami Murder Hornets.
Yeah. MMH.
What do you think?
I like the Dolphins, though. I like that logo. Although I liked it better when it used to be like a cute dolphin. But
yes. Do you want it to be like, could you mix the two and have like a murderous dolphin as the logo?
It's already kind of murderous looking. The Bucks, honestly. The Bucks is a terrible mascot. Sorry.
Yeah, but then do you get rid of the pirate ship and just have an enormous hornet's nest instead of the pirate ship?
But I feel like it would still work with the colors, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Yeah. Okay, question 4. What is your favorite subreddit? I don't know if you're on Reddit.
I am, but like not regularly. What's my favorite subreddit? I'm trying to think of ones I actually go to on a regular basis. It's probably like travel ones. It's probably like how to find cheap flights. Probably like cheap flight Reddit.
Yeah, you fly not lately.
Not anymore.
I know. I didn't know there was a cheap flight subreddit.
There definitely is. I can't think of the name of it, but that's the one I would go with.
That's a good one.
Or like travel hacking.
Question 5, as always, comes from Lenny.
What's up, Lenny?
He wants to know if you saw the story about the Lopez brothers being kicked off of all of the team's group texts because they're on Android, and if it made you reconsider your archaic phone choice.
Here's the problem, Mina. Here's the problem with me having an Android phone, which, by the way...
the problem, you just described the problem.
Is because I travel quite a bit, and I am on Google Fi, and so when I turn my phone on other countries, I can just use the internet. I don't have to but here is the problem why I will not switch to an iPhone from an Android.
Oh, Lord.
And it is for the exact point you just brought up, which is when I switch from an Android to an iPhone, I'm going to be like, hey guys, I got an iPhone, add me to the group chats. And then I'm not going to get added to the group chats, and I'm going to be very depressed about it.
Bill, I look forward to getting texts from you that I will never see.